framework. By now we are familiar that Spring framework is a lightweight, dependency injection, aspect oriented container as well as a framework. So let's look at individual pieces. What are these words mean? So we start with the first one. It is a lightweight. So what do we mean by saying Spring is a lightweight? The first one is the framework itself. The original framework was roughly 2.8 MB. So it is, when compared to the other framework, the size of it is much smaller. But that is not the reason why we call it as lightweight. We call it as lightweight because when we are using the Spring, the overhead that our application requires for using Spring is negligibly small. So Spring does not consume more of resources or more of your processing power. The processing involved in your application is mainly because of your business logic and not because of the Spring. Also, when we write a Spring application, the Spring will not come in between our business logic. In other words, we say that Spring is non-intrusive. The object or the component or whatever you call it as that you create are almost all of them are Pojo objects. So that means to say that they are all plain Java objects and they don't directly inherit or they don't extend out of a Spring specific classes. So you just use the Java object, plain Java object, like how you used to solve your problem using the ordinary Java language. The Spring will not come in your way. The best part of it is layered. And I have already told you, if you want, you can use few of its layer and leave out the others. The advantage here is because Spring does not come in between your application. If you are not happy with the Spring, you can straight away take your application and then start using it or start integrating it with other framework. At the same time, if you have written a application that is not making use of Spring and you feel like I want to make use of Spring now, then you can straightforward integrate that application into Spring. Now let's talk about the next part. I will talk about all these pieces. So let's talk about the dependency injection. Now, what is the meaning of saying dependency injection? We are all familiar with this word because I have explained what is dependency injection in the EJB world. So, what is the meaning of saying dependency injection? When we say dependency injection, it means to say that the object or the services that are required by our business logic or by our objects or by our class are injected into our objects. So we don't have to ask for the dependencies. Now let's look at it in slightly in depth. So we are all familiar why we are using the object-oriented paradigm. So we started at least you started, when you started programming, you started with the structured programming language, and that was the C programming language, wherein you have functions. One function is calling the other function. This is what you had in the C. So you had this main was calling some other function. Some other function called something else, and so on. This thing repeated, and finally it came back, and your program ended. And then you said that this is not a good way of developing programs because a lot of problems were there. I don't want to go in depth into it because it's not a C programming class. Then you came up with the next idea, and that is you said that let's abstract the different problems. So we take the different objects or we take the entities and we say how this entity interact with each other. So this analogy was similar to that of how a human or how a real world objects interact with each other. So you said that we have student interact with the lecturer, or student interacts with the teacher, student interacts with the college, and this is the real life interaction. And we want to have the same thing in our application. And then you said that the way in which we can represent it is using objects. So this is the idea, this is the base idea. So objects are nothing but the abstract entities. They represent something. They represent the interaction in the real world. And then the paradigm of proofs came into picture. You're all familiar with it. But once you start using the object-oriented paradigm, you realize that all these objects are connected. And there are a lot of connections. So you have not done a kind of applications that requires a lot of objects, maybe 1, 2, 3 or 5, 10 objects and it all ended. But if you take the real life picture, there will be too many objects and all of them are dependent on each other. A simplest one, a student depends on a teacher, teacher depends on a college, college depends on a subject, subject and so on. If you bring all the objects together, there is a huge interaction between these objects. So you may say that, okay, so what's the problem? Let's take a simplest example. What will happen if we have the objects? So let me say that you're all familiar with the, this was the first, maybe in the previous classes you have studied this thing. Let's say there is a class called as two-wheeler. And there is one more class called as, this is, you are all familiar. Or you may say that there is a, if you don't like this idea of two-wheeler and four-wheeler, and if you say that no, that was not taught to us, let me call this as a real name for this is a bike, and the other word that you have studied is a car. You are all familiar. And one of the method that was discussed when you started using this class was, there is at least one method called as drive. So you can drive a two-wheeler, or you can drive a four-wheeler, or you can drive a bike, or you can drive a car. And when you start driving a car, you will have the speed increases, the kilometers that you are traveling increases, you have to increase the accelerator and so on. So this method will start calling many other methods. So how do you drive it? To drive it, if it is a bike, you have to have the handle. You have to first keep the handle in balance. If you are driving, you may have to turn left or you may have to turn right, and in that case, you have to turn your handle of the bike. When it comes to the car, if you want to turn left or right, you have to rotate the steering wheel. So if you have a method called as drive here, and if you want to drive, there are many things. This will call many things. So you have to accelerate the car or accelerate the bike and so on. So you are all familiar. Now you have your main method that you are using. So if you want to, let me call this as your application. That application somewhere has something called as the static void main. All of you are familiar. It is not in capitals, but static void main, the main method. So in this main method, what you have done in this is not T is not there. T I am using it to get that text. Okay, that's the shortcut for getting the text. So in this one, you might have created a bike B equal to new bike. And then you might have called B dot drive. This is how you used to write the program. In the same way, you might have written one more thing called as car C is equal to new car, and then you might have said C dot drive. So what is the problem with this? So you said, okay, I have also written that kind of program. So what's the problem with this kind of program? The problem with this is this object, your application is actually tied. I'm not writing the inherit. This is not a inheritance. Please don't misunderstand this with the inheritance. Your application is tied up with these two classes. So, what is the big deal in it? If suppose this class changes, if the structure of this class changes, this will abruptly interrupt your class, or it will abruptly disturb your class also, because you have something called as a strong coupling. You have already studied these two words, coupling and cohesion. What's the difference between coupling and cohesion? In terms of software engineering, there are two words. One is called as coupling, the other word is called as cohesion. Connection between the component is called as cohesion. Coupling. Coupling is the degree up to which your one object is connected to the other. So if your component is connected to a other object and the degree is much higher, we say that there is a strong coupling. Is it good or bad? If you have a strong coupling between the two objects, is it good or bad? Bad. Why it is bad? One can severely affect the performance of the other. So it is bad. Then the next one is the cohesion. What is cohesion? Cohesion is the degree up to which it is doing one thing. If you have a strong cohesion, it is good. Why it is good? Because it is easy to maintain. You have to scratch your head only on one piece. If that piece is not working, if that piece is doing too many things, then you have to scratch your head on too many things, because it is doing multiple things. It may be writing, it may be handling a transaction, it may be handling security. Everything is put into one piece. It's going to mess up everything. So let's come back to this here. And all of you are familiar what is coupling. Coupling is the degree up to which one object is connected to the other object. And you here, you notice that this example, there is a strong coupling between the two things. So, in order for my application to work, I have to have these two objects. So, I must have this bike and car, without which my object will not work. So if you want to start this application, you have to have the bike and the car with you. And the other problem here is, if the structure of that bike and car changes. Now, if let's assume that it is not returning anything. If it is returning a int, or if it is returning float, and somebody says that, okay, drive car will return float now. And if I have not taken care, now I assume here that it is just a void, it's not returning anything. Now what happens is I have to handle that problem. Or if somebody says that this method will take one parameter, drive, and the name of the person who is driving, then this application will break altogether, because there is a strong coupling. How do you avoid the coupling? What is the solution? What's the solution for this? How do you avoid coupling? You do not want to bother about which object you are using, but you want to use it. So what is my intention here? My intention here is to drive the vehicle. I don't care whether it's a car, or I don't care whether it is a bike. I just want to drive the vehicle, regardless of car or regardless of bike. What is your suggestion then? So from the interface, so you need to create a interface. So that is what is required. Let's say you have to create a interface. What must be there in that interface? I'm going to say this interface as iVehicle. Forget it. No problem. And I'm going to write a method inside this called as drive. So what I'm supposed to do now? In this entire thing, I have to declare one variable. So I'm going to create something. I will write it as it is because I have written that VH equal to, I can say, new bike, or this is the OR option, or I can say that it is a new car and so on, provided, what is the condition? Provided this interface is implemented by both of them. So in case of your UML diagram, that how you write it. Okay. So it is, if both the object agree to use that interface, then we can directly use this. Is it proper? Is this valid? Is this valid or not? I am creating a variable of type interface. This is interface. This is a class. This is a class. This is a class. This is a interface. So this space that you see here, oops, this space you see here is a interface. Is this a valid? Can I create a object, or can I create a variable of type interface? So I have VH here. The type of VH is interface, whereas the type of bike was that B was of type bike, C was type car, which is a concrete object. Now I am trying to create a variable of type interface. So here VH can point to bike, VH can point to car, VH can point to a truck, or VH can point to a plane, provided all of them are implementing that particular interface. So what we have done now is we have taken the dependency of our application. So our application was dependent on bike, our application was dependent on the car, and we have taken that dependency out. So we now say that we are not completely tied with the car, or I am not tied completely with the bike or something. If a vehicle is given to me, I can drive it. However, there is a problem. What is the problem? That vehicle is getting initialized inside your class. Even though I have written it outside, it is getting initialized inside your class. What does that mean? Even though I say that I don't bother about which vehicle is given to me, but when I come to this point, I know which is my vehicle. From here onwards, I know that it is just a bike that I am driving. So it is not a good polymorphism as such. I have initialized it. So if you say that I have initialized it, that means to say that your object is still dependent on that bike. Because you are creating the bike, your object depends on that bike. So what is the other solution? You don't want to know which is the vehicle. It is like it's put in a black box. You take the vehicle out, and if it is a plane, you fly. If it is a car, you drive it, or if it is a ship, or you do something with it. Okay. So you don't want to take care, or you don't want to risk your code, or you don't want to tie your code with the specific instantiation of the other object. But the problem here is you want to drive. That means you have to have the vehicle. But you are not interested in which vehicle is given to you. So what is the solution for this? Solution for this is somewhere in your class, suppose say I am going to write this as a new class, my class, okay. In my class, this main method is there, no doubt. Again, that main M is not capitals. I am going to declare a I'll type it as it is, vehicle VH. And now I tell somebody else, can you please give me your bike? So I don't want to own that bike, or I don't want to own that car. I ask somebody else, can you lend your bike to me, or can you give your plane to me? So that I can drive. So that is what is the meaning of saying you are dependent, your object is dependent on something, but it is not interested in creating it inside its own. It wants somebody else to create it and give it to that object. And that is what is the meaning of saying a dependency injection. How can we get the dependency injection? We will learn in many ways. One of the simplest way is you use a set statement. Set VH equal to say x1. So what you are saying is there is a setter method. Somebody has to create that object. I don't know which is that x, y, z. Somebody will create that object and will set that object to me, or in other words, will give that object to me. And then I am going to drive that object. Whichever object that is given to me, I am going to drive it here. So in my main, I will drive it, provided somebody somewhere else, somebody is going to create that vehicle to me, some bike, car, truck or anything, and will inject that into my object. And that is what is the meaning of saying dependency injection. What is dependent here? Your class is dependent on bike or your car or your truck or anything. It is dependent. Without that, it can't proceed. So that is the dependency. But you are not creating it inside. You don't go and hunt for the bike or hunt for the car, or you don't go and create that object on your own. Instead of that, you ask somebody else, create it and give it to me, and I'm going to drive it. And that is what is dependency injection. I hope you got the thing. So if a object or your class is dependent on one object, you are not creating it, somebody else is creating it, and it is injected into your class so that you can work. Which are those things? You have already studied many such things. One of them is the resource. When you created the entity, you said that entity and it's all over. Or when you created the remote reference, when you created this session beans, you said at remote and something was given. So in order for you, I did one example wherein I converted the temperature using a session bean. So the logic of converting the temperature was there with the session bean, and you wanted to use that session bean, but what you have done, you have not instantiated that session bean. You never wrote new session bean. Instead, you said let somebody create that session bean for me, and I'm going to just call a method out of it. And that is what is dependency injection. I hope you got the idea. This dependency injection in olden days was called with a newer name, and it was called as inversion of control, IOC. What is the IOC? Both of them are same. The IOC was the olden name. Now it has been renamed as dependency injection. I'll tell you why that was renamed later, but let's come back to what is inversion of control. What is the meaning of saying inversion of control? Your object is not going behind the dependent objects. So how do you write a usual program? If somebody asks you, okay, create this application, I want to drive a car or I want to drive a vehicle, how do you write your ordinary Java program? So far what you have done is, this is the way you used to write the ordinary Java application. So you had this main, and in that main you said new bike, new car, new truck, and then said truck.drive and so on. That means Your object was dependent on something, you started creating it on your own. Now, what is inversion of control? Inversion of the control is your object is not going behind those dependent components. Those components are given to you. So the control is on the other side. You don't go and control them. Somebody else is controlling and giving it to you. So that was the idea of inversion of control. So what is inversion of control? It is same as dependency injection. You are not creating the object, somebody else is creating the object and it is given to you. So why then these two words are there? These two words are there because of Martin Flower, who is considered to be the father of design pattern. The people use this word up to this was when he, so this was inversion of control. This was what people were using in olden days. In my days, people were using until one day he said, "What is inversion? Which is getting inverted? This is too confusing. That word itself is too confusing. If you tell something that inversion of control, the control is with somebody else, somebody is giving it to you. This is not the right word. The right word for this is dependency injection. So what is the meaning of saying dependency injection? Your object is dependent on something, somebody else is injecting it into you. That's a good word for it. And so everybody agreed, okay, this is the right word. Okay, so then they said, okay, this is not one something. Both of them means the same thing. So somebody says inversion of control, somebody says inversion of dependency injection. It means the same thing. Your object depends on something. You don't go and control them, somebody else is controlling and it is given to you. Okay, so if you want to know more about this, Martin, yesterday I had it, yesterday I wanted to show that thing because yesterday I somehow went back again. Before I proceed, get rid of this. This is the place wherein you can get all the resources for Spring, springsource.org, including the Spring framework. So if you want to download, somewhere you get started. You have, I think, this is the tool. Somewhere you have the download version. You get Spring download. You just download the content. I don't have the internet connection now because I am running out of in battery. Don't want it to spend extra energy on that wireless. So I will not be going there. Just the word is the same, springsource.org. And if you want to search for the design pattern, the word was Martin Flower. I think yesterday I went. If it is there, I will show you that. If this is not yesterday, I don't want to connect to the internet. This is the site, Martin Flower, and he is considered to be the prime person in design pattern. And if you are going into the enterprise world, design pattern is one of the things that you must know. What is design pattern? It is not a subject or it is not something academically you can study it, even though it is there as one of the paper for MSA. Design patterns are industry's best practices. So the experts from the industry, if a program is given to you, write a program to find the factorial of a number, you write some program. If that is given to an expert who has 25-35 years of experience, who's there in the programming, he will write a code that will be definitely much better than what you are going to write in terms of debugging it, in terms of efficiency, management and so on. That is the best practice. If you ask one other expert, they will also write it in the similar pattern. So they have extracted the pattern. The best industry's practice is something called as design pattern. And you notice that most of the time I use this whenever we use the frameworks. What the frameworks have done is they've taken those best practices, put them in proper places, and that is why we are using the design patterns, or that is why we are using the frameworks, because they are based on design patterns. So let's come back to the dependency injection. I hope you got what is the meaning of saying dependency injection. So because of this dependency injection, it promotes loose coupling. Okay, what is the meaning of saying loose coupling? Your object is not dependent. Why your object is not dependent? Because it is not instantiating nor it is using the direct type. So I have not used car equal to something, bike equal to something. I have used the vehicle, which is the interface. So I took the interface. Because of the polymorphism, I can point to any derived version of the vehicle. So it could be car, bike, or anything. So that is the meaning of saying loose coupling. So instead of the object looking up for the dependency, the container provides the dependency. So for them, okay. The next one is the aspect oriented programming. So this is one more piece of thing that you must know. This is based on same idea of object oriented paradigm. You are all familiar with the object oriented programming, but there are some problems that you face whenever you use the object oriented paradigm. Let's look at one such problem. Let me say I am writing a program for bank account, and one of the thing that you will do in the bank account is, what is the one thing you can do if somebody asks you to create a bank account class? Deposit, withdraw, balance. Okay, so which one would you like to go? What is the majority of you? Which one will you create? Deposit. Okay, so you are going to create a method called as deposit. So this is the bank account, and you are going to perform. This is business logic. How you are going to write your program, I am not interested in it. This is your business logic. So Canara Bank may be doing it in one way, ICICI Bank may be doing it in the other way, some other bank does it on its own way, who cares? But in order for depositing, what is required? If you are taking money and if you are putting it, what is required? Account, yeah, that is business part. Okay. Apart from that, something else is required. What is the meaning of saying depositing? In terms of your software, not in terms of bank. Forget about bank, who cares? Okay. In terms of your, what is the step? What is the usual step? General step. You have to, somebody says deposit this money. What do you have to do? Add it. So there is something called as a balance. So where is that balance is stored? Where do you think that balance, usually it is stored? In a database. Okay. So that balance amount, there will be a something called as a double or anything. So you may have this double balance. And this balance is there in the database. So what is the first thing you must do? Read that balance, and somebody is going to provide you that deposit amount, whatever the amount is there, and put it back. So read the value from the database, add the new balance, and then replace it back. So is it the only thing that you are supposed to take care? If you are writing it for real bank, will that thing suffice the entire problem? This is what you are supposed to do. Read from the database, add the balance amount, write it back, not write elsewhere, write it back to the same place. So is it the only thing that you are supposed to do? You are interacting with the database. So do you think it's only one person who is depositing it now? There can be 10,000 people who are doing it. In that case, what must be done? When you read it, the database says, okay, take it. You add the balance amount. When you start writing it back, the database says, what you are talking about? I don't know anything about this. So what will happen now? What will happen? So when you read it, database said, okay, read, get it. When you are writing back, database says, what are you talking about? So I don't know anything about this. So what has to be done now? So can you directly call this method dot deposit and it's all over? How do you do it in the lab? Is it going to work in real life? No. Then what must be done? This method, if you are calling this method must be performed under something. What is that? Under something. this method must be guarded by something. Why? Because whenever you interact with the database, you must say to it that the operation in the database is either completed or it is completely rolled back. And what is that thing is called as transaction. You need a transaction. Okay, so you need a transaction. So, do you think the transaction is your business logic? It's not a business logic. What is a business logic? Read it, add it, put it back. That was the business logic. Your business logic is simple. But do you think it is the only thing that has to be done? You have to take care. Somebody has already told that thing. You have to take care of security. Who is doing it? Okay, depositing, no problem. Anybody can deposit. It's just a number. But what if a malicious person starts depositing 10 crores into one account? A clerk is there, he's working in the bank, and he wants to earn a lot of money. So what he will do? He'll open up and then type, okay, 10 crores. It is added. Bank will have to pay because he will show the balance and he will say that 10 crores is there in my account. I don't know who did it. It's there. See the value. I'm taking the printout and show it. So when somebody is depositing, you must take a very important thing, and that is the security. Not everybody and anybody is allowed to make that deposit. So that is one other thing. The last line, this thing will go forever. The other one, the usual thing is logging. Are you familiar with the word logging? Are you familiar with the word logging? You have journal entries. Journal is considered to be, study the accounts, is not. Yeah. So, journal is the logbook. Like this. What you write in journal? Debit and credits are written in something else. Transaction, you write the transaction when? When you write the transaction. Your account books are there, your accounts are there. Journal entries. Journal entries are the entries that happen as and when. If you are giving 10,000 or if you are giving 5 rupees, you just write that I gave 5 rupees to them. In which account it must be debited, which account it must be credited, it is not the question now. Somebody asked me, okay, I want some driver or somebody came, I want, I have not taken breakfast, I want 25 rupees. Immediately, take it. Write the journal entry. Okay, 25 rupees is given. The entry is there. To which account it must go, who has to be debited, who has to be credited, that I will do it later. As of now, I am just making one entry, and that is what is called as logging. Logging is writing what you have done. Just log. What is the, if you go to this exhibition or book fair, or I think even if you go to this library, there is a log. If you go to reference section, okay, you have to write your register number, at what time you entered and what time you are coming out. What's the reason? So do you think terrorists will go there and put a bomb? Then why they have to take care of that log? In an exhibition or in a parliament or in some VIP place, anybody can go and do something. Okay? If not anything, they can take that flower bouquet and run away. So when the president comes, there is no flower. Okay, so anything can happen. So here, what is the use of logging? Logging helps if suppose some book is missing. Till yesterday that book was there. Today morning 8 o'clock I saw that book. After that it is not there. So what they are going to do? They will check after 8 o'clock who has entered. One among them has taken. Okay, so that is. When we talk about logging, this logging is required. So suppose if something goes bad, you have transaction, you have a security, you have everything. But you know very well somebody is a hacker is going to break into it. So you can just cry after somebody has made some malicious entry. You can't just cry and say that okay, somebody did it. Our security failed, our transaction failed, our database failed, power failed, everything happened. But if you have the log, at least you will come to know what that person was doing. Then you can take a step. So If they know that okay, that book was there very close by, so he took it and threw it out of the window, then they can put some cover for the window so that the books can be thrown out. Some actions can be taken. So logging is required for that. Every step that it is doing, whatever your application is doing, we just write a log. That log is written separately in a text file in a permanently stored place, so that if something goes wrong in tomorrow, if there is some auditing, they can go through the log to find out what has happened. Now you notice over here, this is your main method. You wanted to do the deposit, but there are many other cross concerning things that come into picture. So what are these cross concerns? One is the transaction, one is the security, and one is logging, and you can go on and so on. So there is no end for this. Okay, all of them are required. How do you then handle this particular problem? One way is in the deposit, either inside the deposit or before the deposit, you call some other method. So here you may say that there is one more class called as transaction, and there is a method called as begin transaction and commit transaction and so on. So before you start depositing it, you want to instantiate transaction. I will do it as trans.begin, and if everything goes fine, at the end you have to write trans.end and so on. So this is the usual thing. Again, you have to have the security in some place. So I will before the power comes, I will just do that thing. Security, and do say, I will write it, so don't worry about it. I'll just show you what I've written, because it's going to take some time for me to do that. Then so you notice that before doing the transaction, this is your original code. You have to call the begin transaction, do authorization, begin login, and so on. What are all these things? All of them are nothing but the cross-cutting concern. So these are something that you have to pass in order to perform your business logic. They are services. Just doing a authorization, writing into a log file, or starting a transaction, they are services. They have nothing to do with the actual business logic. So if you are writing it, they come in middle, and most of the time those things will change. If you have used the business application, the person at the securities, they are concerned with the security to a great extent that the hackers will come out with all ingenious ideas, and then they say that the security, the method has to be changed. This is not the security method, that's the old security method that has some flaws. You have to update it, otherwise the virus will attack, this will come, and so on. So you will have to cope up with all this cross-cutting concern. They are part of your application. You have drawn the class diagrams. Have you drawn this class diagram or object diagrams kind of things? Yes, wherein you show the dependency of one class on the other class. Have you done that thing? Yes. Suppose if you take the dependency of the security, transaction, and login, you will notice that if your application may have many objects or many classes, all of them are dependent on the security, all of them are dependent on the transaction. You notice that the most favorite class in your entire application is this security, is transaction, and logging. Why? Because every class is making use of them. But what is the problem? They are not the business logic. They are just the services. Without them, you cannot survive. But all of them are dependent. That means there is a huge dependency on them. So, what is the solution? How to get rid of these things? Instead of writing them inside your application, you know very well, if you start writing it inside your application is now dependent. There is a dependency, and I have just told you what is the problem with the dependency. You can get rid of them. If there is a problem with the other side, that will severely affect your business logic. So you want to keep them out of your class. But how do you do it? For that, what we have is the aspects. So what is the meaning of saying aspect? Now let me write only that method. So this is your method, and that is you said deposit. This was your method. Before this method is called, so before you call this method, you want to do something else. So there were many things: transaction, logging, and other things. You don't want to pollute your method, your business logic with them. You want to keep them separate. How do you do it? You ask somebody else to add it into your code. So what you are saying now is, I'm not going to bother about it. If there is a security, if there is a transaction, it's not my problem. I know only my business logic, and I'm going to write only my business logic. If you want the security, if you want the transaction, if you want the login, let somebody else add that thing into my code. I won't bother about it. So somebody else has to add it. Who is this somebody else? It is not your junior. It is the Spring. So you tell the Spring that I want the security to be started before this method. Where is the security? Security is there in one of the class, and there is a do security, do authentication. So many methods are there. That method is there in the security. You have to start that part. Only if you pass that method or that part, then start executing my business logic. So these pieces has to be added before your method is called. That means when you write your method, you put a small join point. So what is the meaning of saying join point? You put it's like your plug point. If you want to take the power, you put the socket or put the plug into that socket. So you create a join point, and you say this is a join point. If something else has to be added, you add it there. I am not going to bother about it. After that join point, my part will start. Then once my part is started, once my application is ended, if you want to say that commit transaction, there is one more join point here. So these two are my join points. Something has to be started, add it here. Something has to be done after I complete my work. I am giving you one more join point. If you connect your method